What's up, y'all? Welcome back to From the Ground Up. This is Becky, and I am so excited to have you back. Today, I want to get into something that personally, I don't think PT school or courses in general do a good enough job of teaching us. And that is this idea of PTs. And, this includes OTs as well. So clinicians and how we lead our patients. And I want to get into this because on my social media this week, I kind of got some feedback on one of my posts that I'm going to get into, but it's around this idea that as pelvic PTs and OTs, I believe that our job is to guide and lead our patients. And I always say to victory, lead them to victory, right? But it's not to be kind of this passive participant or passenger in their care. And I think we hear people talking, nowadays about being a leader and leading your team, especially if you're a business owner. But what we don't hear enough of is what it actually means to be a leader in the clinic and with your patients. And so, if you think back to PT school, it's like we always hear one of the biggest things is giving our patients autonomy. And this is kind of the argument that came up this week that I'm going to get into in just a second of, autonomy and letting our patients have autonomy when it comes to coming to their appointments, continuing their plan of care, not ghosting us and everything like that. And I just want to get out ahead of this and be like, of course, our patients need autonomy. But what I believe is that we haven't been taught truly how to give our patients autonomy, because autonomy from, the lens of a patient being able to choose their path, right? If we haven't given them a choice of what the path forward actually is and why it's important and why that's going to help them either get out of pain or reach their goals or get their dream outcome or whatever it is, do they really have a choice to be autonomous, right? And it's this idea of informed autonomy, not just uninformed autonomy, right? And it's like, in order to give a patient truly informed autonomy, that means we have to paint the picture and hold the vision for them of what their life can look like, after they've walked through care with us. And so what I had gotten into this past week was I was actually coaching one of my own clinicians at Genesis on, she had brought up a question to me and she was kind of saying, well, what do I do whenever I have, this patient who came to the evaluation? I feel like the evaluation went really well. We were vibing and, I knew I could help her and I explained that to her and she booked out 2 follow-up sessions from there and everything like that. And then I noticed that, she had canceled the first follow-up session, but the second one was still on the calendar. So I was like, oh, surely something came up and I'll see her at this other one that we had booked. Well, the week came of the second appointment that she had booked and she had canceled that one as well. And this clinician of mine had looked in the notes from the admin who had talked to the patient, and there was no reason given for cancellation, because usually we do our best to ask, from the admin. They'll say, oh, okay, yeah, no problem. I can get this canceled or rescheduled. Do you mind, letting me know why, what came up, so we can, collect that data and understand why the patient was having to reschedule, whether it's a sick kid, right? Or they had a meeting scheduled, or they're sick, or they accidentally double booked, or whatever it is, their tire's flat. Or is it, I, think this is actually going to be out of my price range, or whatever it is. We want to know that so that way we can collect the data, but also be able to guide them through those quote unquote objections as appropriate. And so when my clinician had told me, they didn't give a reason, that could either mean, probably it was over text message and they just didn't respond or whatever. And they just kind of said, please cancel my appointment, but then didn't respond to our admin asking why, or whatever the case may be. And so she was kind of like, well, what the heck do I do when I feel like the eval went really, really well, but she ended up canceling and not even giving us a reason to really go off of, right? And here's what I kind of told her, and this was just the patient dealing with our admin, but what I found is that when us, the treating therapist, the PT or OT, actually can get in communication with these patients, it tends to go a lot better, especially these ones that are kind of not being as forthcoming with why they're canceling or needing to reschedule or whatever it is. It's like if we can somehow just get them on the phone with their treating therapist, we tend to see they actually end up booking an appointment and coming back in. And so I was kind of explaining this to her, and she was like, well, I did message her and I did kind of say, I'm here for you when you're ready or if you need me. I really enjoyed getting to know you. And what I told her was, that's all very lovely and kind and nice and sweet. But what that's lacking is this idea that we need to be leading and guiding our patients to their dream outcome, the one that they told us they wanted, right? And it's like it's our job as their treating therapist to take the reins on their care, really, and to take the reins on what that looks like. What is that vision of them at the end of this journey with us? What is that dream outcome? What does that actually look like applied to their life and what they're telling us, the symptoms that they're dealing with, right? Like, how are we going to deal with those symptoms and those pains and the leaking and the prolapse and this and that? And it's the journey of how we're going to get them there that really, really matters to these patients much more than just, oh, I'm here for you. So we have to take this idea of stop being such a passive participant or, passenger alongside your patient on this journey. And we have to start being their leader and guiding them and coaching them and telling them, in our professional opinion, what is best for them. And I want to touch on this because, again, like I said, we're not taught this in PT school. We're taught to wait for the insurance to approve our visits, right? And if we get 4 visits, that's what we get. And we can, maybe the insurance approves 1 visit a week for 4 weeks, or maybe they approve 3 visits a week for 6 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever it is. And it's like we're taught to wait on that and then also to see what our patient can do. And I want you to hear this because what I'm not saying is we force our patients into something, right? First of all, that's fundamentally impossible to force people to do things. People have choices. But this is kind of this pushback I got on my post about this week was someone commented, and she was respectful and everything like that. But the feedback she gave essentially was, as a patient, and I don't know that she meant a patient of Genesis. I think she just meant like in general as a patient. She said this feels predatory and controlling, I believe were 2 of the main words that she used. As a patient, this feels predatory and controlling and like you're trying to force me back into my appointment when I didn't want to come, right? I replied to her and I was, very professional and all the things. And I just used my I statements and I just said, like, that's never my intention to control or corner or force patients into anything. But as a PT, as their PT, it is my job to lead them. And it is my job to hold that vision for them of what can they get from working with me and to tie them back to what I learned about them in the evaluation, right? What is it that they told me they're struggling with? What are the pains? What are the aches? Is it leaking? Is it prolapse? Is it that they can't chase their kid around with the soccer ball? Is it that they're trying to train for this marathon, but they can't because their hip feels like it's being stabbed with a knife every single time they land on their leg? What is it that is holding them back? And then what is the thing they're being held back from, right? So their dream outcome that they get out of all of this. And it is our job to hold that vision for them as their PT and to remind them of what they told us, right? Because they get in their own head about God knows what, especially if this is female patients, especially if this is moms as our patients, right? We're the last people to prioritize our own healthcare and wellness and well-being in general. And so we find every excuse under the sun to, oh, well, I'll just cancel and I don't really need this anyway. And I'm so busy with the kids and I'm so busy with work and we have all this stuff going on and my kids always get sick. And, we find every single reason to not prioritize ourselves. And us in pelvic health, a lot of our patients or most of our patients are females. I know we treat males as well, but a lot of them are females. And of those females, I would venture to guess over 3/4 of them are moms. And so we have to know this about our patients and our clientele, that their human nature is to deprioritize themselves. And they came to the eval, right? They came for a reason. They came to the appointment, they spent 90 minutes with you, and they paid, whatever the payment is, $350. And they didn't do that because they didn't care. They didn't spend their hour and a half and spend their money because they don't want to get better and they actually change their mind. It's like, no, they're trying to convince themselves that they don't matter. And it's our job as a trusted healthcare provider to remind them that they do and to lead them to victory. That's what I always say. I'm like, we got to lead them to victory, and victory being their dream outcome. And so we're just not taught this, you guys. Like, we're not taught this in school. We're not taught this at the jobs that we hold. We are taught to be passive and to just be along for the ride. And that's the distinction I want to make, is that's not true autonomy. We have to inform the patient of the choices that they have. We have to paint the picture of, if you make the choice to come to your appointments and to work with me, here's everything that will happen and can happen and everything. And here's the path forward and here's why it matters, right? That's informed choice number one. Informed choice number two is, and if you don't, unfortunately, nothing changes if nothing changes. So you tell me, do you choose to do nothing and to not, stick to the plan and come in for your appointments and reschedule and all the things? By choosing that, you're choosing to keep peeing your pants, to keep having pelvic pain, to not be able to run that marathon you just told me you've been training for a year because now your hip's hurting, right? Now you're gonna have to cancel the marathon because there's a knife in your hip. It's like, that's not us being salesy or manipulative or controlling. That's us literally giving them two informed choices so they can have autonomy in their care. And if we do that and they still say, it's not the right time, I can't, I'm too busy, it's too expensive, whatever it is, like, at least they made that informed choice. Instead of it being, well, they weren't really clear on what the journey was going to be and what they could get, and so they just didn't come back, right? So that's what I'm saying. When I'm saying that we need to lead our patients, that is a huge piece of clinical leadership, is showing them the plan of care and saying it with our full chest and believing that we can help them, and then telling that to them and then letting them make an informed choice, right? And so that's what I mean whenever I say clinical leadership and giving our patients an autonomous decision, informed autonomy, right? But to do this well, we have to back up, because you can't really make an autonomous decision, an informed autonomous decision, to go back and see your provider through your plan of care or not if you didn't really trust your provider in the first place. Because all trust is the belief that this other person has your best interest at heart, right? And so if a patient doesn't trust us as their PT or OT, if they don't actually believe we have their best interest at heart, when we message them or try and call them and try and get them back in the clinic to not ghost us and to see out their plan of care, and they don't trust us, they're going to think, oh, she just wants to make a buck off of me. They just want my money. No, But if we can do our job and show them from the get-go in the evaluation, but also before the evaluation, in that kind of pre-client journey, as they learn about your brand and talk to your front office and book their appointment and then get to your evaluation, we have to be building that trust very early on. And then they have to come to the evaluation, and then you have to solidify it by how you talk to them, what questions you ask, how you make them feel, how you confidently take the lead and show them what's possible, and then explain how you're going to get there, right? And it's like, we have to lay that foundation of true trust before we can ever expect our patients to be able to make a truly informed, autonomous decision, because that's what's going to derail everything is if they don't believe fundamentally that you have their best interest at heart, they're not coming back. Because why would they, right? They just think you want their money. So you have to, if you want to be a leader, yes, you have to show them the path forward. Yes, you have to explain why it matters. Yes, you have to hold the vision. And before you can even do all that and do it well, you have to have built this layer of trust. And so I want to share an example with you. I have 3 times now gone to what I call Horsey Day. This is at an equine therapy facility. And I started this in one of the leadership coaching groups that I attended. This was 3 years ago now. I went to my first one. And then since then, I've actually even taken the leaders at Genesis to Horsey Day. So that way we can have our own experience. But this whole premise of Horsey Day, in the confines of me attending with my leadership group and then me taking my leaders, right? Because you can do equine, quote unquote, therapy or coaching, as they call it, right? You can do that, about anything. But this, we were there for kind of like leadership and growing as leaders and everything like that. And one of the activities that they have us do, every time I've gone, they've had us start with this activity, is all the horses are out in the field. And they have us start observing the horses and just kind of taking note of what we're seeing and everything. And they're all just out there, grazing, eating the grass and the hay and all that stuff. And maybe talking, like whinnying to each other and all of that stuff. And they're just so precious and adorable. Horses are my favorite animals, by the way. And then after we've observed them for, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes, then they hand us a harness and reins. And they say, all right, go ahead, go pick a horse and put a harness on him. And, I grew up with horses, so I have like a teensy tiny amount of experience with horses and being able to put a harness on. And I used to even know how to saddle them. I don't know that anymore, I don't think. But, most of us in these groups didn't have horse experience. And so they're just like, go on out. And these are these huge, like, I don't know, 1,000-pound animals. I don't even know if that's how much they weigh, but it seems like a good number. They're heavy. They are big, heavy animals. And so what they do is they send us out in the field. And the coaches and the equine therapy people are kind of observing us as we're interacting with these horses. And a lot of people have trouble putting the harness on the horse naturally, right? It's like they've never done this before. How are they going to know how to do it? And then what comes out of this activity is 2 main things, okay? Number 1, the horse is not going to let you put the harness on their head and face if they don't trust you. Okay, they are literally going to turn away from you. They're going to walk away. Some of them sprint away from you. And the way that horses know that they can trust you is this concept called congruency. And what congruency means in like humans is our outside, so what we're showing to the world, and in this case, what we're showing to the horse matches what we're feeling on the inside. And so it's this idea that they teach us, again, after the fact, after we've struggled with putting these harnesses on the horses and they're all running away from us. It's like, we didn't believe we could do it. Yet here we are showing up and trying to put the harness on the horse when we don't believe that we can do it. And so that's very incongruent. And then there's also an incongruence of, we're trying to put the harness on the horse, but we're nervous. But on the outside, we're trying to not look nervous because we don't want to spook the horse. And it's the whole thing. But the reality is horses don't care if we're nervous or not. They just want us to be congruent. And a good example of that is horses are very often used as therapy animals, right? This is an equine therapy facility. They have kids with mental disabilities and physical disabilities and a combination of the two all the time. And those kids are loud. They're screaming, they're thrashing around, they're giggling, they're squealing, they're running around, they're jumping up on the horses, they're flapping their legs and arms around. And the horses do not care. And it's because those kids are congruent, right? What they're showing with their bodies on the outside is exactly what they're feeling on the inside. And so the horse is like, this bro's cool, like they're not trying to be spooky, right? They're not going to be weird. I don't have to have my guard up. Okay, so that's the first fundamental thing that we learn at Horsey Day is the horse will not let you put the harness on if they do not trust you first. Okay. And to build the trust with the horse, you have to be congruent. So what you're saying and what you're showing with your body language and what you're doing has to match what you feel on the inside. And that is perfectly applicable to our relationships with our patients, right? We have to build the trust and we have to have that congruence with them to build that layer of trust. The second biggest thing that I have taken away from Horsey Day is once you get the harness on, that doesn't mean they're going to follow you. Some of them just stand there and you're yanking on the reins and they're just like, they're just like standing there and they literally don't move or they pull back, right? They're like fighting you. And a lot of that has to do with not only do horses want to trust you and want that congruence, they actually want you to be their leader. And it was this idea of own the relationship with the horse at least 51%. So if it's you and the horse, you have to at least have 51% of that relationship and that leadership, or it's not going to work. Because horses are prey animals, right? And so they want someone who they can trust to lead them to victory or to safety or to whatever it is. And so this is another thing that even once we got the harness on, we're like, yay, we're cheering, we're winning. And it's like, then the horses like do nothing. And it's, some people they did, but it's like the ones that they did follow and that they did allow to lead them, those were the ones that didn't necessarily struggle with their leadership. And then the ones that did struggle leading the horse, they were the ones that didn't think that they could do it, or, ooh, am I pulling too hard? Or is this mean to have to push the horse to turn directions? Or, does the horse want to follow me? And it's like all of those thoughts. And the horse is not going to follow that because they can sense that you're not leading with 51%. And that is so dang fascinating because we have to do that with our patients as well. We have to lead at least 51% of that relationship on the foundation of trust that we've built, right? And so, how do you expect the patient to follow what you say and to believe in what you say and to trust you with the way and with this vision that you've cast for them and with this plan of care if they don't sense that you have the confidence to lead them through it, right? And so that is just, it was so eye-opening for me with the horses. And I'm like, this is first of all applicable to literally every aspect of my life. But for this example specifically, it works beautifully as well. It's like we have to take the reins in these relationships with our patients, and we have to own 51% of that relationship as their healthcare provider and as their guide and their leader. And it's the same with the horse. They're a very relational animal. We're not just going to get out here and whip them and, control them. You're not going to be able to control, a 1,000-pound animal or whatever. They have to trust you, right? So that's their informed and autonomous decision is to trust you because you're congruent. But it's a relationship. It's a partnership. And that's the same with our patients is we're not in the business of controlling them 100%. We just have to own at least 51% and be their guide and lead them to what we know is best for them. And another fun example, because I love horses and I want to tell you guys this story, at Horsey Day, not only did we do that activity where we have to put the harness on and then we have to try and lead them, and we even had to lead them through obstacles and all of that stuff, which just took it a step further, right? Which is funny. We do that with our patients, right? We have to lead them through ups and downs and hard things and obstacles and life and all the things. But there was also an activity that I was put into in a round pen, which if you don't know much about horses, it's just a literal round pen. It's the shape of a circle. And, ranchers and things use it to kind of train the horse to run them in a circle and all this stuff. And so the activity, you guys, was that I had to stand in the middle of the round pen and the horse was in there with me. And I could not leave the middle of the round pen. I had to stand there. I had nothing in my hands. I had to stand there. And I had to make this horse run in a circle around the edge of the round pen. And I literally got in there and I was like, but I can't walk up to the horse. Like I can't go push it. I can't whatever. And the whole point of this was I had to figure out how to use my energy, yes, my energy to connect with the horse and get it to move the way I wanted it to move. And y'all, I did not think this was a thing. I was like, this is fake. This is woo woo. This is not real. But something in me was like, yeah, but you don't give up, Becky. And like, you figure things out and you are going to do this. And so, challenge accepted. And so I'm in there and I'm like, okay, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? And so lo and behold, I figured out a way to use my body language and use my voice and use some clapping and things like that and some pointing and some arm movements to get this horse moving. And so it's like walking around the edge of the round pen and the coaches are like, make it go faster. And I'm like, oh, like I just got it to go. And now you're telling me to go faster. And it's funny because when I lose concentration, when I started to doubt myself, the horse stopped also. It's just so wild. It is so wild. I kid you guys not. I would not lie to you. This is a real story that happened to me. And so I had to channel that energy and I had to not only make it move again, but make it go faster and then not just trot, but like a full-on gallop around this round pen. And that was just such a cool experience for me because first of all, like I said, I thought it was woo-woo. I thought it was fake. I was like, this is not a real thing. Like, what are they trying to show me here? But I got in there and I gave it a go and I believed in myself and I tried different things. I risked looking stupid and silly in front of my team and got the horse to move. And it was just, that was like a really pivotal, life-changing experience for me of just learning like how powerful your energy can be and your body language and using, showing up with your full chest and like taking that 51%, even if you're not touching the animal or in arm's reach. It's like, that can be super applicable to leading our teams. And it's like it's the energy that you show up with and it's how you channel it, right? And so that was just a really cool side story that I wanted to share that I was like, I moved a horse with my energy and it's really cool. But to bring it all back, you guys have got to get out of this mindset of, I'm just along for the ride. And if the patient wants to come see me, they can. Or if they like don't want to, they don't have to. Like they have their full choice, they can cancel. And I just want to push on that because yes, that's true. And look in the mirror and ask yourself, have I given them all the information that they need to make an informed, autonomous decision? Have you done that? Because as PTs and OTs, we must lead our patients. We have to own 51% of that relationship, at least. We have to take 51% of those reins and we have to guide them to victory. But that leadership has to start with this foundation of trust, okay? Because it's never going to work if you're trying to strong arm them and push them around and control them, which, I doubt most of you guys are doing, but you are questioning why your patients aren't coming back. And you need to look at, have you created a foundation of trust so you can own 51% of that relationship, right? And so I just hope you guys take away that we are leaders. Even if you are quote unquote just a clinician and you're not a business owner and you're not a team leader and you just clock in and clock out to work, which I hope by now I've helped you see that you're more than just an employee and you're more than just a clock in, clock out. But if you are employed and you are not in a quote unquote leadership role, I really want to challenge you to understand that you are a leader of pelvic health and you are leading and guiding your patients. That is your job and that is your calling and you can do it and you can build this foundation of trust and, lead your patients to victory. And you're going to be shocked when you kind of hone in on that and own your 51%. When you do that, you're going to be shocked. Your retention's going to skyrocket. Your fill rates are going to skyrocket. Your cancellation rate's going to plummet, like all of that stuff. And it's because patients want a leader. They don't know what they need. They need you to tell them what they need to get out of pain or to stop having symptoms or to run the marathon without the knife in her hip. They don't know what they need to do, but you do. And they need you to build the trust and then show them how to get there. And they need you to help hold them accountable and give them the information they need to make these informed, autonomous decisions, you guys. So I know you can do it. Just want to encourage you in that again and challenge you to step up here because this is how we change the game, y'all. This is how we change the game of pelvic health is we own our identity of leadership, even with our patients. And we show up and we own 51% of that relationship and we lead them to victory, y'all. Let's do it. So if you found this helpful, please do me a favor and screenshot it and share. This is how the show grows. This is how more people hear this stuff. So if it's been impacting you in a positive way, please share it. Send the show to a friend or to a fellow clinician. Share it to your stories and tag me so I can see that you're enjoying it. I love seeing your stories tagging me because I just love knowing that I'm helping you guys, right? I'm not just talking to a random screen. In my DMs, I always like to say they're open. Please send me questions. I love answering your questions, whether it's about a patient case or leadership, or you're thinking about starting your own business, whatever it is. My DMs are open. Please DM me. I'm happy to chat. Always, always, always. Hope you guys have the best rest of your day, and let's change the game, y'all.